I just think we should do it today. Let's just call for it. I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. I want to help you out. You can second it, right? Like, make the motion to impeach President Biden. Go ahead. It's your turn. You second it. No, nothing. Okay, we got nothing. So I want to, with my last couple minutes, show the American people that they're never going to impeach Joe Biden. It's never going to happen because they don't have the evidence. Okay, this is a show. It's all fake. They just want to do these hearings. It's not leading to impeachment.
That was just a taste of what freshman Congressman Jared Moskowitz has unleashed on House Republicans since taking office, arguably single-handedly dooming their efforts to impeach President Biden. It's part of why Politico is now saying that Democrats have found their Florida man in Moskowitz. Congressman Jared Moskowitz is back with us. I want to pick up on exactly that clip we just saw because I think Alicia and I have spoken about this. You know, there's this question, what ultimately stops the wild, crazy disinformation on the right? And at some point, I think shame and humiliation has to come in as a tactic, because to treat it as an equitable argument against an argument that Democrats are making, one, I think is the wrong way to treat it, but it plays to a tie when it shouldn't. I think what you engage in that hearing room is critically important for the American people to see.
Yeah, well, first let me give credit to Jamie Raskin, who is going to be the next chairman of Oversight, and you know, Maxwell Frost, Jasmine Crockett, Robert Garcia. I mean, there's just a whole team, Dan Goldman. There's been a whole team effort. And I think Hakeem Jeffries, Leader Jeffries, figured out that they were putting together this TV committee, right, in which they were going to try to sell this to the American people. And we realized, listen, we can come up there, we can try to be as professional as we can with logic and reason, but if they're going to make this into a show, we have to participate in that. And I think we've done that, right? It turns out, in order to impeach a president, you have to have evidence. Who knew, right? And so they've had none, right? And I think we got to the point where it was super clear that they were running out of room. And I think Democrats, we took advantage of it. I knew when I called for that vote, I knew Comer would look at me like a deer in the headlights. It turns out maybe Republicans shouldn't pick their chairman based on how much money they raise. They should pick their chairman based on ability. So, you know.
Will their move to save face be a criminal referral? And would they have the votes for a criminal referral in today's House?
They might have it in committee. Right, because that committee is just built away. But they're not going to have that in the House. There's just no way they're going to have that in the House, which is why it's not happening.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, where is this criminal referral? I mean, you know, Comer sent a letter to the president inviting him to committee like that was going to happen.
And they were like, "We are not coming. We're done.
Right.
Please stop."
The last time Hunter Biden showed up to committee, I was like, "Hey, he's here. Any questions?" They were like, "No."
So what do you think is the learning? What's the lesson? What's applicable from the success you've had in derailing this?
Well, I think a lot of us, right, have figured out that messaging has changed in today's politics, right?
Delivery.
Yeah. You have to try to break through. And in a way, I think at least for myself, what I've tried to do is there's plenty of meanness, right, in these committees, yelling and shouting. I've tried not to do any of that. I've tried to bring more of like a daily show or a weekend update with sarcasm, with humor, right, trying to shame them, right, with a calm voice without yelling and screaming or name calling. And I think that's breaking through just beyond the regular news cycle.
So House Republican Conference that's willing to go to all these hijinks is now facing a question of whether or not Mike Johnson survives a vote, and it likely comes down to whether Democratic members like you decide to bail him out. What's the temperature on that?
Well, I mean, look, obviously we'll wait for our leader Jeffries to figure out that solution. But I've said this before, and I think there are other members who feel the same way. The idea of allowing Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone who literally, would let the world burn, with her isolationist foreign policy, who has talked about states seceding from the Union. Right? The idea of letting her sit in the People's House, in the well of Congress, giving a speech, removing any speaker, and having that powerful moment. There is just no way Democrats are going to let her do that. I'm not going to let her do that. We won't even let her name a post office. We're not going to let her. We're not going to let her take out the speaker.
I think a little May-December romance between House Democrats and Johnson is okay. You don't have to marry the guy, right? But he can't do you any harm between now and the end of the year. And honestly, then you own the guy as well. Whatever happens, I don't think he's speaker come January. Largely because it's probably Jeffries. But second, he won't have the votes in January among his own conference.
I don't think he'll have the votes in January among his own conference. My question continues to be about people like Speaker Johnson and any other Republican that wants to do well on a Tuesday and then got me side-eyeing them on a Thursday. And it's a moment or is this real movement? And Speaker Johnson, he was one of the chief cheerleaders of the insurrection. Chief cheerleaders of the fake elector scheme. He is supporting Donald Trump. Heck, he went down there to bend the knee just like Kevin McCarthy. He stood up to the crazies in the House conference this past week on Ukraine aid and humanitarian aid for Gaza and other places and Taiwan and so on and so forth. Is he going to stand up to the crazies again throughout the rest of the year? Is he going to stand up to Donald Trump?
I think you're right. I think it's a moment. Right, and Democrats we're not. We know who he is. We know what his record.
I mean, you got to work with him. Y'all
yeah. I mean, we know what we have, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, as we get through Congress, what is left? Right, we got to keep the government open in September. That's a big vote. We got FAA reauthorization. But that might be it, right?
My God.
You know, that really might. Well, let's not pretend we've been doing so much in Congress, right?
You've been so busy.
Right, we're only
because we got